Well,
Good morning, everybody. Mike Wright at Edge Home Finance. We're kind of set up in a little different setup today because I'm honored to have a couple partners of ours and many of you guys, Cambria Title. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. We got Kirk Anderson, who is the brains behind the operation, and John Selle, who's the beauty, So thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. We truly appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
This is normally our Realtor of the Week segment,
Right.
but I think it's critical that we get partners that are helping agents become better agents on here. So we appreciate you coming on.
thank you.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. So, Kirk, how in the heck did you get into the title business? Let's get down and dirty right away.
So back in the mid-'90s, I graduated from St. Cloud State in a fall semester, and my resume was out there, but I wasn't getting any hits. But I was part of the American Marketing Association there, and one of the guys that I think he graduated the previous semester, had gone to work at North Star Title at the time.
Got it.
And he was looking for an assistant, so he had called up to our office in St. Cloud, asking who graduated recently. They gave him my name, interviewed with him, he hired me, and a year later he was gone from North Star. So I took over. We had a closing department that specialized in finance companies and small banks and getting them on the schedule because they would have closings that would come up that would be rush jobs, basically.
Yeah, of
And they
course.
wouldn't be able to get in on our main closing calendar. So that's what I dealt with for 4 or 5 years, and then I got into exams. And after a few years of that, I was running that department, and then we went through 3 different purchases and had a pretty big department at that point. But in 2010, then we got sold, and they moved everything down to Florida for cheaper labor.
Yeah,
and
got
so we were out. I did insurance for a little bit, and then Christy was contacted by
Christy's the
VP of
yeah, okay.
of
Yeah,
title.
VP of the title,
Perfect.
so my boss.
Yep.
So she was contacted by John Schrader, who used to be our president at North Star. He's president of Cambria Mortgage, then looking to start a title company, and thought of her, and she thought of me, and rest is history.
I love it. So you're an examiner over there, right?
Yes, examiner and a production supervisor.
And I think it's important to spell the difference because I know John runs into this a lot. Yes, there's Cambria Mortgage, but there's Cambria Title. They're completely separate entities as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
If I find out otherwise, one of these things.
Yeah.
But John, how has it been, man? I mean, is this it's a tough market right now?
Right
isn't
now
it?
it's extremely tough, but I feel everything I'm doing, which is I'm out on the street every day,
Yeah.
still meeting realtors and loan officers, and I'm one of the few out there.
Yeah, hustling.
Yeah, my partners and also people that you're the only title company I see out on the street anymore. And I'm like, well, that's my job.
Yeah.
And you never know when this does turn. It will be, I feel very,
Top of mind.
it will be.
Yeah.
They're going to remember that John from Cambria Title is still out there.
Well, you guys do an amazing job. I've used Cambria Title a lot, and I think that if knowing we've got a lot of realtors out here, one of the greatest things that I love is that at the closing table, you walk into their very nice office in Eden Prairie, and there on a nice big TV is the realtor's name, the client's name, and it's very welcoming.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot. It means a lot.
Yeah, we do it to promote them. I mean, they
Yeah.
are our clients, and we are there to help them grow their business. So feel promotion is the best way to do that, and that's what we do. Our closers talk about our agents, they talk about the realtor. They want them to go, when that client leaves, they're top of mind
Yeah.
for a referral.
Good. Well, and I think you do an amazing job at it, and Christy keeps that, ship sailing forward. Kirk, give us some details on what, title is one of these things where it's like that necessary evil. Like, I don't even know if half the loan officers has ever even looked at a title policy, right?
Right.
What are some of the things that you as a title company do? Plat drawings, obviously. How do you examine someone's name per se?
Well, so we get an order, and if it's in the metro area, I've got subscriptions to all the county websites, so I can do those searches myself. And I get solicitations all the time from vendors to do that, but it just the way I do work, it doesn't make sense for me to farm that work out if I can do it myself.
Yeah, do it yourself, sure.
I like to examine while I'm searching, and if something looks out of place to me, then I can do more searching. Where an abstractor may just, not necessarily know what we're looking for as examiners. So I'll be doing that search, and at the same time, I'm typing data into our system to generate our title commitment, which is a commitment to insure, based on, here's what's out there
records.
for liens. Right, exactly. Liens that we need cleared up, maybe judgments, tax liens, all that. So you had asked about names. We're searching for district court judgments that would be payable, tax liens. We're doing a bankruptcy search, federal search for federal liens. So all that gets put on the commitment, and then I send that out. I send a prelim CD, closing protection letter, and our wiring instructions to whoever the contact on the
lenders.
file is.
Yeah.
And then it's basically handed over to a closer at that point. And then if they have questions or need me to review something, then they'll do the communicating mostly with the client, and then come to me with the questions, or maybe just forward the client on to me to answer.
So why is this important for the realtor? And I bring it up because you got plat drawings, which obviously there's never issues with fences being over on people's lands, or
never.
pools being over on people's lands. We're not going to mention the Lake Minnetonka current, issues, but why is that important for realtors? I mean, are they finding this out before, or are they finding it out after you?
From time to time, a client of theirs may say, we were told when we bought that there was a fence issue, or there was a boundary line dispute with a neighbor, or there was an old lien that we think was insured over, but we're not sure. They'll reach out to us and say, okay, well, I've got this client. Can you look at this for me, and just can we see what we're dealing with? But that's not all the time. So yeah, it might be when I send the commitment out that, hey, we found that a shed with no foundation is in the drainage and utility easement. And those, nobody really ever does anything about it, because again, there's no foundation. So if it had to be moved, it's easily moved down the road. But
That's where you were in your head. The importance of you, John, is that your friendships with these realtors, because I've dealt with them, where they will call you and say, this may be an issue, right? Whether it's a septic system, whether it's a fence. But that's where you're amazing, because you call, listen to it. Now you go to Kirk and you have,
Right.
yeah, he transfers the call to me.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of using us. We don't have voicemail.
Right.
So
right.
if our clients call in, and we've had people that are not even our clients call in and ask specific questions, where I can then transfer it to Kirk and at least they get an answer, because they can't get a hold of their title company or whatever the situation there is.
Sure.
But that's just something that we do is if you call, we're going to answer the phone.
And obviously we can't give legal advice. We don't have an attorney on staff. So, in some ways, in some of that way of speaking generalities. But,
Yeah.
But we, I think I've been in the industry long enough where if they come to me with a hypothetical, I'll have a hypothetical for them as how we'd go about fixing it, how we'd go about insuring over it. And back to your question on the agents, then, as part of this commitment to insure, if it's a non-cash transaction, there's probably a lender involved, and they're going to want title insurance. But our commitment will be set up such that, okay, here's requirements for the lender to get their policy, but here's also requirements for the buyer to get an insurance policy if they want it.
So to really dumb this down, okay?
Yeah.
Mortgage title insurance, which basically insures us or the end user, the wholesaler, that they have a clean title to the property, right?
Yeah.
Explain owners.
Bluntly, it would be that they're going to be able to
Simplified.
foreclose on the property and be in a first lien position.
Yep.
And that's, as horrific as that sounds to a borrower, that's the end game for the lender.
Well, and it's Fannie and it's Freddie and it's wholesalers. They demand it, right?
Right. And then they can come back to us if, they get a search from their attorney or whoever does it,
Yeah.
and they're seeing an old lien. Then they come back to us and
Explain owner's title.
so
insurance.
owners then so the lender's policy offers no protection to the borrower. There might be something in the coverages that sort of helps them, but it's
Covers the lender.
really isn't intended that way. So an owner's policy then ensures the buyer that they're going to have good marketable title when they go to sell. And part of what it does is if there's a claim that comes up against, and somebody just brings it up, there's an heir to the property that people didn't know about when the prior probate had happened. See, something like that. However frivolous a claim could be, all they have to do with that policy is just send whatever they've been given onto the insurer.
Yep.
And at that point, they're obligated to defend them in court, or they can just take care of the problem and fix it. That's up to the insurer. But they are obligated to, in essence, almost unlimited attorney or attorney services to take care of that issue.
Well, it's a critical piece because it's an optional insurance that all your buyers are going to be faced with, right? To me, I always get asked, should I do it? Why wouldn't you? It's a one-time premium.
Yeah, it's
and
usually,
then you're adequately
if you're
protected.
If you're borrowing 80%, it's
20%
unless
exposure.
you're doing a $20 million house. It's probably $400 on top of the lender's policy. And how I explain it to people is that's basically 1 hour of you going to an attorney if you get a frivolous lawsuit against you.
Yeah. No,
So-
it makes a lot of sense. But it's important for you guys as agents to truly understand. Go out to lunch with John, and he explains this stuff to you. Go to their office. Kirk will sit down with you. You have to understand it. We talk every week about becoming smarter and becoming more proficient in your art. Knowing the title business is a critical piece. Bringing up this.
Well, and one more on that. We only have one underwriter. That's going to be the end insurer. That's Old Republic Title Insurance Company.
Yep.
Used to be headquartered downtown Minneapolis for 60 years, something like that, and they've recently moved out to Minnetonka. But they're one of the big four, and they're still the highest rated of the four.
So explain that a little bit. So you got a title company.
Yep. So
Then you have
we're a
master.
policy issuing agent of Old Republic Title. So they're very big on their agencies and the agents that they work with.
Yep.
In Minnesota, Old Republic doesn't have any direct operations anymore, so it's all us as the agents. So I am acting on behalf of them. If there is something that is extra hazardous about what I found in my search, if the policy amounts are going to be above our limits, I have to go to them and get them to sign off on it or to give me guidance. But again, I mean, they're so highly rated and they've been around a long time.
Yeah.
And they're wonderful people and you know, all that. So that's why we've chosen just to stick with them, and it's a very
Yeah, it
great
makes a lot of
relationship.
sense. When you say limits, like $1 million homes, 2 million, 5 million.
So at $1.5 million, then I have to do what's called an over limits request. I go onto their website and fill out some information, you know, about the property, who we're insuring, what I found in my search, and then I hit send my commitment with it.
Perfect.
And then they'll look at it and say, okay, yep, all good, go for it, you know. And
So,
so that's some oversight for the, you know, that they can keep on the job we're doing.
I love it. I mean, I think that, like you said, it's so critical. John, you've helped me so much with this business. We've been in it together a long time. And, you know, it's tough, right? But I think that it's critical to keep people up to speed. I mean, people are, you know, what is a plat drawing, right? Touch base on what a plat drawing is, right?
So that's an inspector will go out to the property, measure the boundaries of the property, make sure, you know, okay,
A lot.
it's over here, the neighbor's fence isn't over it or whatever. They'll look at the records to see where a drainage and utility easement might be. If it's a property that's landlocked, they're going to be looking for a driveway, you know, apparent easement there. And then what they send back to us is a drawing of that, and it's not a hand drawing. It's very precise. Show the you know, the footages of each boundary line, where an easement might be, and then there'll also be a sheet that is an inspection, and they're looking for, again, things maybe
Easements.
over the lot line,
Yeah.
things from our property that might be over the lot line. You know, just things like that. If there's water abutting the property,
Yeah.
you know, they'll point all that out to us, and then I use that when I'm doing the commitment to set out requirements if I need to.
Well,
And
but
then
they're
we
critical.
also check special assessments too. So
Right.
if your seller has, well, or maybe it's not your seller, maybe you have the buyer, and there is a street assessment, you know, that's still got 40 years on
New
it.
street.
Typically, in a purchase agreement, you're going to put that the seller will pay that at closing. So if there's $4,000 left on that, they'll take care of that at closing. Then your buyer's got a fresh start without that. Sometimes with condos, there will be assessments that have to be assumed,
Yeah.
can't be paid in full at closing. But I think you'd probably know that also through the documents you have to get, you know, from the
The
management
condo
company,
questionnaires, etc.
from the homeowners association.
A lot of that stuff is spelled out, but it's a critical piece, right?
And it could be a new assessment that nobody except the seller knows about, but the seller maybe doesn't know the time frame and maybe didn't disclose it on the purchase agreement. And there you
That's
go.
an important piece that I want to touch base. So I live in a house.
Mm-hmm.
I hear rumors that they're going to come in 2 years and put in a new street. They don't
Okay.
know whether it's 2 years. They don't know it's
3.
3 years. Where does the seller's responsibility fall on that?
Typically, if they've been given notice, they would
Is that a formal
disclose
notice,
that.
or is
Yes,
it a
you would get
next door
You would get a
notice?
letter from the city. So I just had my sidewalks redone maybe 4 years ago. I live in Minneapolis.
Yep.
I got a letter that, hey, we're going to be, actually sometime ahead, I got a letter that they were going to be out. You know, I might have been following year. And then once they were out, then they sent me a letter with, okay, here's how many, you know,
Houses.
panels, whatever we got to redo, and this is going to be your assessment on it. And then I have option to send them a check or finance it through the city and just have it go on my taxes for the next
10 years.
probably 10 years for, I believe that's what it is. Sometimes they're 5 if it's a low amount. Sometimes they're 20 if they're
So
a large
it's the
amount.
formality. It's the formality of a notice. If your clients get a notice, not this next door, whatever, it's a formal notice from the
Correct.
city, then it becomes the burden of the seller.
Correct,
to
to
disclose it.
disclose that, and obviously we're going to find it. So
You and I talked a little bit about, which is a critical topic, divorces.
yes,
There's kind of some new rules about all that.
yeah. So August 1st, the legislature put some changes into the divorce law. How it's been in the past with real estate is that if there is real estate from one or both of the co-petitioners, we'll just say,
Yep.
that you would put that into the divorce decree, and then disclose, okay, here's who's getting it, if there's a marital lien, all that kind of stuff. And we would record a certified copy into the land records, eventually at the closing.
Yep.
But if, so there's a document that's called a summary real estate disposition judgment, SREDJ for short.
Make sure you remember that, you all,
And and again, I'm no attorney, but I know that the statute said that if one of those existed, so an attorney can use that form, and as it kind of says in the title, it's just dealing with the real estate. So there's no child support info on that, anything like that. It's just, here's the parties, here's when they were divorced, here's who the judge was, here's the real property, and this is how it's, who gets it, whether there's a lien or all that. If that existed, that's what we needed to record into the land records to keep that child support and all that other stuff out of there. But the law changing August 1st is that if there's real estate owned by one or both or whatever, the attorney has to do an SREDJ now.
If they're
So,
formally getting divorced.
If they're getting divorced and there's real estate to be
Divided.
divided.
Explain, because this is another important piece, explain the 1 to buy, 2 to sell in Minnesota, because it's unique in Minnesota where I own a property, I'm not married yet, I get married, and all of a sudden my spouse owns half the house.
Well, she would have spousal interest in the property, and therefore, if you wanted to refinance,
Or
you wouldn't be
sell.
able to refinance by yourself.
Correct. Yep.
You would need her signature on there, so you can't do anything to kind of change her situation. You can't take cash out and basically run. You know? You need her on there. So the 1 to buy, 2 to sell is, again, in the statute, it states that there's what's called, purchase money mortgage, and that
Yep.
would be the mortgage a person takes out to buy the property.
Yep.
That you can do by yourself. So maybe husband and wife live out of town. He can get up here for closing. She can't. So we just put him on the purchase agreement. He goes into title by himself as a married person, and then he signs the mortgage as a married person. We slap purchase money mortgage on the front page of that mortgage and record it, and all is well. And then he can add her at a later date.
And you do that by a quick claim deed?
Correct. But I would tell people that if you're going to do that, just reach out to your investor and tell them, hey, I want to add my spouse. I just want to make sure that's not going to affect my loan at all, because there's a due on sale clause in the mortgage. It technically says they can call the note due if you change title.
That's an important piece. And if you please re-listen to it, because it happens, not often, but it's important to know that.
Right. And the lender, I wouldn't think, there's no reason for them not to grant you permission to do that, because the one person signing the mortgage at that time, purchase money, all that makes it a good foreclosable mortgage.
Yes.
So their lien position is set at that point. Anything down the road's really not going to affect that. They're just reserving that right that, you can't sell the property without paying off the mortgage.
Yep. Well, and I think here's a couple things as a side note with this thing. We run into a lot of times with a mortgage where the husband makes money, the spouse makes money. One of the two will make the money, have good credit, the other doesn't. So what we'll turn around and do is to do the mortgage in the person's name that makes the money, and then just simply add the spouse onto the title.
Well, and one comment I would have on that, I know that there's a frame of thinking in the lending world, and there are basically two schools of thought. One is that you do it that way because if they don't have good credit, then, well, we'll just keep her off the purchase agreement or him, and not put them in title and whatever. I've read the guidelines for Fannie or Freddie. I'm sure they're both the same, but there's no reason not to put that spouse that's not on the note on the purchase agreement and into title right away. Then they don't have to worry about doing that quick claim down the road.
Yeah, correct.
They just won't be on the note. So
Yep.
they're not responsible for the payment. They're not
Correct.
credit isn't being used, but they're in title. They can go into then title as joint tenants, and
Yep.
if one of them passes away, it's easy to get title into the other person's name and not go through probate and
Yeah.
things like that. If you put the one into title and you're going to do a quick claim and you don't get around to it, and God forbid they get in a car accident and die, then you're dealing with probate, and that gets expensive, and time takes time to do that.
So without putting everyone to sleep,
We haven't done that yet?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Nice talking to you folks here.
Yeah.
Explain tenants in common
Okay,
and joint tenancy.
So a tenants in common, which is the presumed tenancy in Minnesota, unless you specifically say joint tenants on a deed with more than one person as a grantee, is basically divided interests. So if you've got a husband and wife that go into title as tenants in common, they in essence own 50% each.
Yep.
So husband passes away in said car accident. She's going to have to probate his half ownership to see who the heirs are to get it solely in her name. I don't often see that on purpose at all. In fact, if I see it when I'm doing an exam and my deed doesn't list joint tenancy on it, I will point it out to whoever my client is and say, hey, mention this to your borrower. Only one of them's entitled, or they're entitled as tenants in common, and it's not typical that I see that for husband and wife. So 99 times out of 100, when they bring that up to their borrower, that borrower's saying, whoa, wait a second. Nobody's ever told me that.
We don't want that, yes.
We wanted to be joint tenants, and somebody just grabbed the wrong deed and filed that, and it didn't create that.
And I think a simplified version of that, married couple, spouse passes away, all of a sudden the son owns half that house through the deal, or mother-in-law owns half that house, and sometimes owners own great, right? So joint tenancy is the
care
right,
of that, and it's just a simple affidavit of survivorship. Takes care of that, gets the deceased party's interest into the other party, and it doesn't have to be spouses. It can be it's just
correct.
co-owners.
Yeah, correct.
In back to the tenancy in common, I will point out one kind of situation I've seen where people have done that on purpose would be like on a second marriage.
Yeah. Okay.
So they want, they want their interest in that property to flow down to their kids who aren't their current spouse's kids.
Fair enough.
And that's the way to do that. So,
Well, and again, these are the questions. Reach out to John. he is so smart when it comes to this stuff, or he's got resources that are smarter. But that, you
Thanks,
know,
Mike.
And, yeah, what are buddies for, right?
Yeah.
But you know, he's got the resources that are willing to help you guys, because there's a lot, and there's, you know, you got homeowners insurance stuff, you got title work. There's a lot of pieces that you all have to put together. We on the lending end get fortunate enough to work with these guys a lot, so we get exposed to a lot of it, but you don't. And so don't be afraid to reach out to this group. Kirk, what do you think, man? Are we going to see this market turn? What are you in the
Well, in my 26 years, whatever it's been in the industry, this is by far the longest time we've gone with, you know, high rates and low volumes.
Yeah.
It's typically, you know, 5 or 6 months, maybe through the winter months, and then come February, we're, you know,
rolling again?
they start rolling in, the orders due, and we're like, all right, here we go. But you know, everybody I talk to, we're all looking like basically spring.
Yeah.
That we hope that rates are down, you know, maybe
Well, they're
in the
dipping. I mean, I think
fives or
that
sixes, and
Yeah.
then, you know, there's some volume out there that can be refied, and there'll be, you know, people that, you know, maybe the millennials who have been hesitant, you know, all they know is these low rates that we had the last few years, right? You know, the 2.5% to 4%. And then people are telling them 8%, and it's like, why would I buy a house at 8%? Well, you know,
Kids
again,
and-
if you can find a house that you like, you can afford the payment, you're gonna be able to refi at some point.
Yes.
Right.
So, you know, get in there. You're not married to the rate; you're married to the property, and
See, I've heard that from realtors. First time from the
Yeah.
title company. I like it. But I think it's critical for you guys is that don't get caught up in all this stuff. People are still getting divorced. People are still having babies. People are still downsizing. There's a number of reasons why people are moving. And so just stay positive and use your resources during this time where you may not be that busy. Call these guys, set up a lunch. John's got an open credit card that he is more than willing.
Can we edit that out of the?
to take you out to lunch and you know, teach you some stuff. So sorry, Christy. I mean, I know you gave me one, but thank you. But anyways, you two, I appreciate you tremendously. Your partnership means a lot to me. John has been a great friend forever. Kirk I've known for a long time. It's so comforting to be able to go call these guys when you need help and they answer the phone. Kirk will call back immediately if he's on the phone. So that's critical.
Yep.
You two mean a lot to me, and I appreciate your friendship and partnership, and glad to have you as partners of the week, gentlemen.
Thanks
thank
for
you, Mike.
inviting
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great week. Oh, by the way, thank you all for being here. I don't want to forget the most important piece. Thank you all for being here. Without you guys, we're not here. The Realtor Connect will not continue to grow. We need your help. We have Instagram, Realtor of the Week, all one word. Plus, we also have a YouTube channel. It's phenomenal. The comments on all these have been terrific. For YouTube, it's Realtor of the Week, all separate words. But continue to comment, continue to like, invite your friends. With that, have a wonderful week.